self-satisfied and probably thought he was being proven right. I wanted to punch him, but Victoria was my concern. How can you think that? I'm your friend. I told her. If you were my friend, you wouldn't be acting like this. You wouldn't try to stand in my way. You act like you loved my brother. But there's no way you could have no way you really understand love. Didn't understand love. Was she crazy? If she only knew what I'd sacrificed for Dimitri. What I'd done to be where I was now, all for love. She was the one who couldn't understand. Love wasn't a fling in a back room at a party. It was something you lived and died for. My emotions surged. That darkness welling up within me that made me want to lash out in return for her horrible accusation. It was only through the strongest of efforts that I remembered she was already hurting. That she only said the things she did because she was confused and upset. Victoria, I do understand, and I'm sorry. I'm only doing this because you're my friend. I care about you. You aren't my friend, she hissed. You aren't part of this family. You don't understand anything about us or how we live. I wish you'd never come here. She turned and stormed away, pushing back inside through the long line of partygoers. My heart ached as I watched her. I turned to Abe. She's going to go try to find him. He still wore that damnably knowing expression. It won't matter. He'll have nothing to do with her anymore. Not if he values that pretty face of his. I was worried for Victoria, but kind of had a feeling Abe was right about Roland. Roland would no longer be an issue. As for Victoria's next guy, that was a worry for another day. Fine. Then we're done here. Do not follow me anymore, I growled. Keep your promise to leave Bea, and I won't have to. I narrowed my eyes. I told you, I always keep my promises. And as I hurried back to the Lykoff house, I suddenly wondered if that was true. The blowout with Abe and Victoria was like cold water on my face. What was I doing here? To a certain extent, Abe had been right. I had been deluding myself. Pretending Dimitri's family was my own in order to soothe my grief over him. But they weren't. This wasn't home. The academy wasn't my home either, not anymore. The only thing I had left was my promise to Dimitri. The promise I'd somehow lost sight of since coming here. Some of the Lykoff family was in bed when I got home, but others were still in the living room. I slipped upstairs to my room, waiting anxiously for Victoria to get home. A half hour later, I heard footsteps on the stairs and the sound of her door closing. I knocked gently on it. Victoria, I said in a loud whisper. It's me. Please talk to me. No, came the response. I don't ever want to talk to you again. Victoria dash. Go away. I'm just worried about you. You aren't my brother. You aren't even my sister. You have no place here. Ouch. Her voice was muffled by the door, but I didn't want to risk a fight in the hall and let the others hear. Going to my room, my heart breaking, I stopped and stood in front of the mirror. It was then that I knew she was right. Even Abe was right. Bea wasn't my place. In a flash, my meager belongings were packed, but I hesitated before going downstairs. Victoria's closed door stared at me, and I had to fight the urge to knock again. If I did, it would only trigger another fight. Or, maybe even worse. She would forgive me and then I would want to stay forever, lost in the comfort of Dimitri's family and their simple life. Taking a deep breath, I headed downstairs and walked out the front door. I wanted to tell the others goodbye, but worried the same thing would happen, that I'd look at their faces and change my mind. I needed to go, I realized. I was angry at both Victoria and Abe. Their words had hurt me, but there'd been truth in them. This wasn't my word. I had other things to do with my life. And I had a lot of promises to keep. When I was about 8 blocks away, I slowed down, not because I was tired, but because I wasn't sure where I was going. Leaving that house had been the biggest step. I sank down on the curb in front of the neighbor's silent, dark yard. I wanted to cry without knowing why. I wanted my old life back. I wanted Dimitri and Alyssa. Oh, God, I wanted them. But Dimitri was gone. And the only way I'd see him was if I truly set out to kill him. And as for Alyssa, she was more or less gone to me too. Even if I survived this, I didn't think she could forgive me. Sitting there, feeling lost and alone, I tried reaching out to her one more time. I knew it was foolish, considering what I'd seen before, but I had to try one more time. I had to know if I really could have my old place back there. I slipped inside her mind instantly, my runaway emotions making the transition easy. She was on a private jet. If Jill had been stunned by meeting St. Vladimir's A-list, thanks. After that, the others seemed to forget about her and got carried away by their own conversation. Lissa noticed Jill's uneasiness, but didn't do much to remedy it. That was a shock. The Lissa I had known would have gone out of her way to make Jill comfortable and be included. Fortunately, the younger girl seemed perfectly entertained by watching the others' antics. I also took comfort in knowing Jill would be okay once she met up with Mia. Lissa had sent word ahead to Mia to come pick up Jill when they landed. Seeing as Lissa and the others had to attend to one of Tatiana's functions right away, Mia had said she'd take Jill under her wing for the weekend and show her some of the innovative things she'd learned to do with her water magic. Lissa was glad for this. Happy she wouldn't be babysitting a freshman all weekend. Even if Jill was totally off of Lissa's radar, one person wasn't, Avery's brother Reed. Their father had decided it would be a good idea for Reed to go with them, and seeing as Mr. Headmaster Lazar had played a key role in working with Tatiana to arrange this trip, there was little argument. Avery had rolled her eyes and spoken to Lissa about it covertly, just before boarding. We're all riding your reputation, Avery said. Part of the reason Dad let me come was because you're in good with the Queen, and he wants it to rub off on me. He's then hoping I'll get in good with her. And then that'll rub off on Reed and the rest of the family. Lissa tried not to overthink the logic too much. Mostly. She was bothered because Reed Lazar was still as unpleasant as he'd been the first day they met. He wasn't really mean or anything, it just made her uncomfortable being around him. Really. He was the polar opposite of Avery. Whereas she was animated and could always strike up conversation, he stayed tight-lipped and spoke only when spoken to. Lissa couldn't really tell if it was shyness or disdain. When Lissa had tried asking him if he was excited to go to court, Reed had simply shrugged. Whatever. I don't care. His tone had been almost hostile, like he resented her for asking, so she'd given up all other attempts at conversation. The only person, other than his sister, that Lissa saw Reed ever speak to was Avery's guardian Simon. He had also come along. When the flight landed, Mia was as good as her word. She waved enthusiastically when Lissa stepped off the plane, her blonde curls whipping around in the wind. Lissa grinned back, and they gave each other quick half hugs, something that never failed to amuse me given their former enemy status. Lissa made introductions for those who needed them as an escort of guardians, led them away from the landing strip and toward the inner portion of court. Mia welcomed Jill so warmly that the younger girl's uneasiness faded, and excitement glowed in her green eyes. Smiling fondly, Mia glanced away from Jill and over to Lissa. Where's Rose? Silence fell, followed by uncomfortable glances. What? Demanded Mia. What did I say? Rose is gone, said Lissa. Sorry. I thought you knew. She dropped out and left after the attack because there were some things, some personal things, she needed to take care of. Lissa feared Mia would ask about the personal things. Only a few people knew about my search for Dimitri, and Lissa wanted to keep it that way. Most thought I just disappeared from post-battle trauma. Mia's next question completely shocked Lissa. Why didn't you go with her? What? Lissa stammered. Why would I do that? Rose dropped out. No way am I going to. Yeah, I suppose. Mia turned speculative. You guys are just so close even without the bond. I assumed you'd follow each other to the ends of the earth and figure out the details later. Mia's own life had gone through so much upheaval that she took that kind of thing in stride. That weird. Fluctuating anger I've been feeling pop up in Lissa every so often suddenly reared its head and turned on Mia. Yeah, well, if we were so close. Then it seems like she wouldn't have left in the first place. She's the selfish one, not me. The word stung me and clearly shocked Mia. Mia had a temper of her own. But she sat on it and simply held up her hands in an apologetic way. She really had changed. Sorry. Wasn't trying to accuse you of anything. Lissa said nothing else. Since my departure. She'd beat herself up about a lot of things. She'd gone over and over things she could have done for me before or after the attack, things that might have made me stay. But it had never occurred to her to go with me, and the revelation hit her like a smack to the face. Mia's words made her feel guilty and angry all at the same time, and she wasn't sure who she was the maddest at, me or herself. I know what you're thinking, said Adrian a few minutes later. Once Mia had led Jill away and promised to meet up later. What, you read minds now? Asked Lissa. Don't have to. It's written all over your face. And Rose never would have let you go with her. So stop agonizing over it. They entered the royal guest housing, which was just as lush and opulent as it had been when I'd stayed there. You don't know that. I could have talked her into it. No, said Adrian sharply. You couldn't have. I'm serious, don't give yourself one more thing to be depressed about. Hey, who said I'm depressed? Like I said, she abandoned me. Adrian was surprised. Since my departure, Lissa had been more sad than anything. She'd occasionally been angry at my decision, but neither Adrian nor I had seen such vehemence from her. Dark feelings boiled within her heart. I thought you understood, said Adrian, with a small, puzzled frown. I thought you said you'd dash. Avery suddenly interrupted, giving Adrian a sharp look. Hey, leave her alone, okay? We'll see you at the reception. They were at a point where the groups had to split, girls going to one part of the lodging and guys to the other. Adrian looked like he wanted to say more, but instead he nodded and headed off with Reed and a couple of guardians. Avery put a gentle arm around Lissa as she glared at Adrian's retreating figure. You okay? Avery's normally laughing face was filled with concern. It startled Lissa in the same way Adrian's moments of seriousness always startled me. I guess. I don't know. Don't beat yourself up over what you could have or should have done. The past is gone. Move on to the future. Lissa's heart was still heavy, her mood blacker than it had been in quite a while. She managed a tight smile. I think that's the wisest thing you've ever said. I know. Can you believe it? Do you think it'll impress Adrian? They dissolved into laughter. Yet despite her cheery exterior, Lissa was still struck by Mia's offhand comments. They plagued Lissa in a way she hadn't thought possible. What really bothered her the most wasn't the thought that if she'd come with me, it could have kept me out of trouble. No. Her biggest issue was that she hadn't thought of coming with me in the first place. I was her best friend. As far as she was concerned, that should have been her immediate reaction to my departure. It hadn't been, and now Lissa was racked with even more guilt than usual. The guilt was all-consuming, and she would occasionally transform it to anger to ease the pain. It didn't help much. Her mood didn't improve as the evening progressed, either. Not long after the group's arrival, the Queen hosted a small reception for the most elite of all visitors who had come to the court. Lissa was quickly discovering that the Queen always seemed to be hosting some party or another. At one point in her life, Lissa would have considered that fun. She no longer did. At least not when it came to these kinds of parties. But keeping her dark feelings locked up, Lissa stayed good at playing the role of nice royal girl. The Queen seemed happy that Lissa had a suitable royal friend and was equally pleased when Lissa impressed other royals and dignitaries she was introduced to. At one point, though, Lissa's resolve nearly faltered. Before you leave, said Tatiana, we should see about your guardians. She and Lissa stood together with a group of admirers and hangers-on who were keeping respectful distances. Lissa had been staring vacantly at the bubbles in her untouched champagne and looked up with a start. Guardians, your majesty. Well, there's no delicate way to put this, but now, for better or for worse, you're without any protection. The Queen paused respectfully. Belikov was a good man. My name naturally didn't come to her lips. I might as well have never existed. She'd never liked me, particularly since she thought I was going to run off with Adrian. As it was, Lissa had noticed Tatiana watching with some consideration while Avery and Adrian flirted. It was hard to say if the Queen disapproved. Her partying aside, Avery seemed a model girl save that Tatiana had wanted Lissa and Adrian to eventually get together. I don't need any protection right now, said Lissa politely, her heart clenching. No, but you'll be out of school soon enough. We think we found some excellent candidates for you. One of them's a woman a lucky find. Janine Hathaway offered to be my guardian, said Lissa suddenly. I hadn't known that, but as she spoke, I read the story in her mind. My mom had approached her not long after I left. I was a little shocked. My mom was very loyal to her current assignment. This would have been a big move for her. Janine Hathaway. Tatiana's eyebrows rose nearly to her hairline. I'm sure she has other commitments. No, we've got much better choices. This young lady's only a few years older than you. A better choice than Janine Hathaway. Not likely. Before Dimitri, my mother had been the gold standard by which I measured all badassness. Tatiana's young lady was undoubtedly someone under the Queen's control and more importantly, not a Hathaway. The Queen didn't like my mom any more than she liked me. Once, when Tatiana had been bitching me out for something, she made a reference to a man my mother had been involved with, someone whom I suspected might be my father, a guy named Ibrahim. The funny thing was, the Queen had almost sounded like she had once had an interest in the guy too, and I had to wonder if that was part of her dislike for my family. Lissa put on a tight, polite smile for the Queen and thanked her for the consideration. Lissa and I both understood what was going on. This was Tatiana's game. Everyone was part of her plan, and there was no way to go against her. For a brief moment, Lissa had that strange thought again of something Viktor Dashkov had once said to her. Aside from his crazy killing and kidnapping schemes, Viktor had also wanted to start a revolution among the morally. He thought the power distribution was off something Lissa occasionally believed too, and that it was wielded unfairly by those with too much control. The moment was gone almost as soon as it came. Viktor Dashkov was a crazy villain whose ideas deserved no acknowledgement. Then, as soon as courtesy allowed, Lissa excused herself from the Queen and headed across the room. Feeling like she was going to explode with grief and anger, she nearly ran into Avery as she did. God, said Avery. Do you think Reed could embarrass me anymore? 2 people have tried to make conversation with him, and he keeps scaring them off. He actually just told Robin Badaga to shut up. I mean, yeah, she was going on and on, but still. That is not cool. Avery's dramatic look of exasperation faded as she took in Lissa's face. Hey, what's wrong? Lissa glanced at Tatiana and then turned back to Avery, taking comfort in her friend's blue-gray eyes. I need to get out of here. Lissa took a deep, calming breath. Remember all that good stuff you said you knew about? When is that going to happen? Avery smiled. As soon as you want. I returned to myself, sitting there on the curb. My emotions were still going crazy, and my eyes were fighting off tears. My earlier doubts were confirmed. Lissa didn't need me anymore, and yet, I still had that feeling that there was something odd going on that I couldn't quite put a finger on. I supposed her guilt over Mia's comment or spirit side effects could be affecting me. But still, she wasn't the same Lissa. Footsteps on the pavement made me look up. Of all the people who might have found me, I would have expected Abe or maybe Victoria. But it wasn't. It was Yeva. The old woman stood there, a shawl draped over her narrow shoulders, and her sharp, cunning eyes looking down at me disapprovingly. I sighed. What happened? Did a house fall on your sister? I asked. Maybe there was a benefit to our language barrier. She pursed her lips. You can't stay here any longer, she said. My mouth dropped open. You speak English. She snorted. Of course. I shut up. All this time you've been pretending not to. You've been making Paul play translator. It's easier, she said simply. You avoid a lot of annoying conversation when you don't speak the language. And I've found that Americans make the most annoying conversation of all. I was still aghast. You don't even know me. But from the first day, you've been giving me hell. Why? Why do you hate me? I don't hate you. But I am disappointed. Disappointed? How? I dreamed you would come. I heard that. You dream a lot. Sometimes, she said. The moonlight glinted in her eyes, enhancing her otherworldly appearance. A chill ran down my spine. Sometimes my dreams are true. Sometimes not. I dreamed Dimka was dead, but I didn't want to believe it, not until I had proof. You were my proof. And that's why you were disappointed. Yeva drew the shawl more tightly around her. No. In my dreams, you shone. You burned like a star, and I saw you as a warrior, someone who could do great deeds. Instead, you've sat around and moped. You've done nothing. You haven't done what you came to do. I studied her, wondering if she really knew what she was talking about. And what is that exactly? You know what it is. I dreamed that, too. I waited for more. When it didn't come, I laughed. Nice vague answer. You're as bad as any scam fortune teller. Even in the darkness, I could see the anger kindle in her eyes. You've come to search for Dimka. To try to kill him. You must find him. What do you mean, try? I didn't want to believe her. Didn't want to believe she might actually know my future. Nonetheless, I found myself getting hooked in. Have you seen what happens? Do I kill him? I can't see everything. Oh. Fantastic. I only saw that you must find him. But that's all you've got. I already knew that. It's what I saw. I groaned. Damn it, I don't have time for these cryptic clues. If you can't help me, then don't say anything. She stayed quiet. I slung my bag over my shoulder. Fine. I'm leaving then. And like that, I knew where I would go. Tell the others, well, tell them thank you for everything. And that I'm sorry. You're doing the right thing, she said. This isn't where you should be. So I've heard, I muttered, walking away. I wondered if she'd say anything else, chastise me, curse me, give me more mysterious words of wisdom. But she stayed silent, and I didn't look back. I had no home, not here and not in America. The only thing left for me was to do what I'd come to do. I had told Abe I kept my promises. I would. I'd leave Bea like I told him. And I'd kill Dmitri, as I promised myself I would. I knew where to go now. The address had never left my mind. 83 Kosakova. I didn't know where it was, but once I reached the town center, I found a guy walking down the street who gave me directions. The address was close by, only about a mile. And I headed out at a brisk pace. When I reached the house, I was glad to see that the lights were still on. Even as pissed off and raging as I was, I didn't want to wake anyone up. I also didn't want to speak to Nikolai and was relieved when Dennis opened the door. His expression was all astonishment when he saw me. Despite his bold words back at the church earlier, I don't think he'd really believed I'd joined him and the other unpromised ones. He was speechless, so I did the talking. I changed my mind. I'm coming with you. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for what came next. I promised Abe I'd leave Bea, but I hadn't promised to return to the U.S., take me to Novosibirsk. Chapter 16. Dennis and his two unpromised friends, Artur and Lev, were ecstatic that I was going to be part of their posse. But if they expected me to share their crazy enthusiasm for reckless strigoi hunting, they were about to be sorely disappointed. In fact, it didn't take long after I joined them before they realized that I was approaching the hunt very differently than they were. Dennis's friend Lev had a car, and we took turns driving to Novosibirsk. The drive was about 15 hours, and even though we stopped at a hotel for the night, it was still a lot of continuous time to be cooped up in a small space with three guys who couldn't stop talking about all the strigoi they were going to kill. In particular, they kept trying to draw me out. They wanted to know about how many strigoi I'd slain. They wanted to know what the battle at the academy had been like. They wanted to know my methods. Anytime my mind turned to those topics, though, all I could think of was blood and grief. It was nothing I wanted to brag about. And it took about 6 hours on the road for them to finally figure out that they weren't going to get much information from me. Instead, they regaled me with tales of their own adventures. To be fair, they'd slain several strigoi, but they'd lost a number of their friends, all of whom had been in their teens, like these guys. My experiences weren't that dissimilar. I'd lost friends too. My losses had been a result of being outnumbered, though. Dennis's group's casualties seemed to have been more due to rushing into without thinking. Indeed, their plan once we got to Novosibirsk wasn't really that solid. They reiterated that strigoi liked to hunt at places that were crowded at night, like dance clubs, or in remote places like alleys. That made for easy pickings. No one noticed as much when people disappeared from those kinds of places. So Dennis's plans mostly involved trolling those hot spots in the hopes that we'd run into strigoi. My initial thought was to immediately ditch this group and strike out on my own. After all, my main goal had been to simply get to Novosibirsk. With everything I'd learned now, it seemed logical that Siberia's largest city would be the next best place to look. Then, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that jumping into the strigoi scene alone would be as stupid as one of the unpromised gang's plans. I could use their backup. Plus, since I didn't actually know where Dmitri was yet, I had to come up with a method of getting some information. I'd need help for that. We made it to Novosibirsk at the end of the second day of driving. Despite hearing about its size, I hadn't imagined it would be anything like Moscow or St. Petersburg. And true. It turned out to be not quite as large as they were, but it was still just as much a city, complete with skyscrapers, theaters, commuters, and the same beautiful architecture. We crashed with a friend of theirs who had an apartment downtown, a damper named Tamara. Her English wasn't very good, but from the sounds of it, she was another unpromised one and just as excited as everyone else to rid the world of Strigoi. She was a little older than the rest of us, which was why she had her own place, and was a cute brunette with freckles. It sounded as though she waited until whenever the guys came to town to hunt, which I took as a small blessing. At least she didn't go out alone. She seemed particularly excited to have another girl around, but like the others, she quickly picked up that I didn't share their enthusiasm. When our first night of Strigoi hunting came around, I finally stepped up into a leadership position. The sudden change in behavior startled them at first, but they soon listened with rapt attention, still caught up in my superstar reputation. Okay, I said, looking from face to face. We were in Tamara's tiny living room, sitting in a circle. Here's how it's going to work. We're going to hit the nightclub scene as a group, patrolling it and the alleys behind it for dash. Wait, interrupted Dennis. We usually split up. Which is why you get killed, I snapped. We're going as a group. Haven't you killed Strigoi by yourself, though? Asked Leviticus. He was the tallest of the group, with a long and lanky figure that was almost more like. Yes, but I got lucky. That. And I also just thought I was a better fighter than any of them. Call me arrogant, but I was a damned good guardian. Or near guardian. We'll do better with all 5 of us. When we find Strigoi, we've got to make sure we take care of them in an isolated place. I hadn't forgotten Sydney's warnings. But before we kill them, I need to talk to them. It'll be your job to restrain them. Why? Asked Dennis. What do you have to say to them? Actually, it's what they have to say to me. Look, it won't take long. And you'll get to make your kill in the end, so don't worry about it. But this next part went against my grand plans, but I knew I had to say it. I wouldn't get them killed for the sake of my own quest. If we get ourselves in a situation where you're trapped or in immediate danger, forget the talking and restraining. Kill. Save yourself. Apparently, I seemed confident and badass enough that they decided to go along with whatever I said. Part of our plan involved going undercover, so to speak. Any Strigoi who was close or got a good enough look would immediately recognize us as Dampiers. It was important that we not attract any attention. We needed a Strigoi scanning for victims to pass right over us. We needed to look like other human clubgoers. So we dressed the part, and I was a bit astonished at how well the guys cleaned up. Dennis, crazy or not, was particularly good looking, sharing the same dark gold hair and brown eyes that his brother Nikolai had. My few changes of clothes weren't quite up to partying standards. So Tamara delved into her wardrobe for me. She seemed to take a lot of delight in finding things for me to wear. We were actually similar in size, which was kind of amazing. With her tall, super slim build, Lissa and I had never been able to share clothes. Tamara was my height and had a similar body type. She first offered me a short, tight dress that was so similar to the one Victoria had worn that I just shook my head and handed it back. The memories of our argument still hurt, and I wasn't going to relive that night or in any way play blood or dress up. Instead, Tamara settled for dressing me in black jeans and a black tank top. I consented to hair and makeup too. And studying myself in the mirror, I had to admit she did a good job. As vain as it was, I liked looking good. I especially liked that the guys looked at me in a way that was admiring and respectful, but not like I was some piece of meat. Tamara offered me jewelry too. But the only thing I'd wear was the Nazar around my neck. My state required a jacket, but she found a sexy leather one that didn't take away from the rest of the outfit's appeal. Setting out around midnight, I couldn't help shaking my head. We're the goddamned hottest vampire hunters ever, I muttered. Dennis led us to a club where they found Strigoi before. It was also apparently where one of their unpromised friends had been killed. It was in a seedy part of town, which I guess added to its appeal for Strigoi. A lot of the people there were middle and upper-class young people, apparently drawn in by the dangerous aspect. If only they'd known just how dangerous it was. I'd made a lot of jokes to Dimitri about Russia and Eastern Europe being 10 years behind in music, but when we entered, I discovered the ground-thumping techno song playing was something I'd heard in the US just before leaving. The place was crowded and dark, with flashing lights that were actually a little annoying to damper eyes. Our night vision would adapt to the darkness and then be blasted when a strobe light kicked on. In this case, I didn't need my sight. My shadow-kissed senses didn't feel any Strigoi in the area. Come on, I said to the others. Let's dance for a while and wait. There are no Strigoi nearby. How do you know? Asked Dennis, staring at me in wonder. I just do. Stay together. Our little circle moved to the dance floor. It had been so long since I'd danced, and I was a bit surprised at how quickly I found myself getting into the rhythm. Part of me said I should have stayed ever vigilant. But my Strigoi alarm system would immediately snap me awake if any danger came. That nausea was kind of hard to ignore. But after an hour of dancing, no Strigoi had appeared. We left the dance floor and started circling the club's edges, then moved outside to sweep that area too. Nothing. Is there another club nearby? I asked. Sure, said Artur. He was stocky, with close-shaved hair and a ready smile. A couple blocks over. We followed him and found a similar scene, another secret club hidden in a rundown building. More flashing lights. More crowds. More pounding music. Disturbingly, what started to bother me first was the smell. That many people generated a lot of sweat. I had no doubt even the humans could smell it. To us, it was cloying. Tamara and I exchanged looks and wrinkled our noses, needing no words to convey our disgust. We moved to the dance floor again, and Lev started to leave to get a drink. I punched him in the arm. He explained something in Russian that I recognized as a swear word. What was that for? He asked. For being stupid. How do you expect to kill something that's twice as fast as you while drunk? He shrugged, unconcerned, and I resisted the urge to hit him in the face this time. One won't hurt. Besides, there aren't even any dash. Be quiet. It was creeping over me. That weird stirring in my stomach. Forgetting my cover, I stopped dancing, scanning the crowd for the source. While I was relying on my senses to feel Strigoi, spotting them in the crowd was a bit harder. I took a few steps toward the entrance, and my nausea lessened. I moved toward the bar, and the feeling increased. This way, I told them. Act like you're still into the music. My tension was contagious, and I saw the anticipation sweep them as well as a little fear. Good. Maybe they'd take this seriously. As we headed in the bar's direction, I tried to keep my body language oriented toward it, like I was seeking a drink. All the while, my eyes swept the crowd's periphery. There. I had him. A male Strigoi was standing off in a corner, his arm around a girl close to my age. In the dim lighting, he almost seemed attractive. I knew closer examination would reveal the deathly pale skin and red eyes that all Strigoi had. The girl might not have been able to see them in the darkened club. Or the Strigoi might have been using compulsion on her. Probably both, judging from the smile on her face. Strigoi were able to compel others just as well as a spirit user like Lissa could. Better. Even. Before Before our eyes, I saw the Strigoi lead the girl down a small, unnoticed hallway. At the end, I could just make out a glowing exit sign. At least, I presumed it was an exit sign. The letters were Cyrillic. Any idea where that door goes? I asked the others. The guy shrugged, and Dennis repeated my question to Tamara. She answered back, and he translated. There's a small alley out back where they keep trash. It's between this building and a factory. No one's usually there. Can we get to it by going around the club? Dennis waited for Tamara's response. Yes. It's open on both sides. Perfect. We hurried out of the club by the front door, and I divided our group into two. The plan was to come at the Strigoi from both sides and trap him in the middle provided he and his victim were still out back. It was possible he could have led her elsewhere. But I thought it more likely he'd want to subdue her and get his blood right there, particularly if it was as deserted as Tamara said it usually was. I was right. Once my group had split off and peered around behind the club, I saw the Strigoi and the girl lurking in the shadow of a trash can. He was leaning over her, mouth near her neck, and I silently swore. They didn't waste any time. Hoping she was still alive, I came charging down the alley, the others on my heels. From the alley's other side, Dennis and Lev also came running. As soon as he heard the first footfall, the Strigoi reacted instantly, his staggeringly fast reflexes kicking in. He immediately dropped the girl, and in the space of a heartbeat, he chose Dennis and Lev over Artur, Tamara, and me. Not a bad strategy, really. There were only two of them. Because he was so fast. He probably hoped to incapacitate them quickly and then turn on us before we could flank him. And it almost worked. A powerful hit sent Lev flying. To my relief, a couple of trash cans blocked him from the building's wall. Hitting them wouldn't feel good, but if I had the choice, I'd rather hit metal cans than solid bricks. The Strigoi pounced on Dennis next. But Dennis proved remarkably fast. Unfairly, I'd assumed none of these unpromised had any real fighting skills. I should have known better. They'd had the same training as me. They just lacked discipline. Dennis dodged the blow and struck out low, aiming for the Strigoi's legs. The hit landed, though it wasn't strong enough to knock him over. A flash of silver showed in Dennis's hands, and he managed to partially swipe the Strigoi's cheek just before a backhanded slap knocked the damper into me. A cut like that wouldn't be lethal to the Strigoi, but the silver would hurt, and I heard him snarl. His fangs gleamed with saliva. I sidestepped Dennis quickly enough that he didn't knock me over. Tamara grabbed his arm, holding him so that he wouldn't fall either. She was fast too, and had barely steadied him before leaping up at the Strigoi. He swatted her away, but didn't manage to hit her hard enough to push her far. Artur and I were on him by that point, our combined force knocking him against the wall. Still, he was stronger, and the pinning was brief before he broke free. A responsible voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like Dimitri's warned me that had been my window to kill him. It would have been the smart and safe thing to do. I'd had the opening, and my stake was in my hand. If my crazy interrogation plan failed, the others' deaths would be on my head. As one. Artur and I leapt out again. Help us. I yelled. Tamara threw herself against the Strigoi, landing a swift kick to the stomach as well. I could feel him starting to shake us off. But then Dennis joined in too. Between the four of us, we wrestled the Strigoi down so that he lay back first on the pavement. But the worst wasn't over. Keeping him down wasn't easy. He thrashed around with incredible strength, limbs twisting everywhere. I heaved myself up, trying to throw my body's weight across his torso while the others restrained his legs. Another set of hands joined us, and I looked up to see Lev lending his strength too. His lip was bleeding, but his face was determined. The Strigoi hadn't stopped moving. But I felt satisfied he wouldn't break away anytime soon, not with all five of us holding him. Shifting forward, I placed the point of my stake at his neck. It gave him pause. But he soon resumed his struggle. I leaned over his face. Do you know Dimitri Velikov? I demanded. He shouted something incomprehensible at me that didn't sound very friendly. I pressed the stake in harder and drew a long gash against his throat. He screamed in pain, pure evil and malice shining out from his eyes as he continued swearing in Russian. Translate. I demanded, not caring who did it. What I said. A moment later, Dennis said something in Russian, presumably my question since I heard Dimitri's name in there. The Strigoi growled back a response. And Dennis shook his head. He says he isn't going to play games with us. I took the stake and slashed at the Strigoi's face, widening the gash Dennis had made earlier. Again, the Strigoi cried out. And I played club security didn't hear any of this. I gave him a smile filled with enough malice to match his own. Tell him we're going to keep playing games with him until he talks. One way or another, he dies tonight. It's up to him whether it happens slowly or quickly. I honestly couldn't believe those words had come out of my mouth. They were so harsh, cruel. I'd never in my entire life expected to be torturing anyone, even a Strigoi. The Strigoi gave Dennis's translation another defiant response, and so I kept on with the stake, making gashes and cuts that would have killed any human, moral, or damper. Finally, he shot off a string of words that didn't sound like his usual insults. Dennis immediately translated. He said he's never heard of anyone named that, and that if Dimitri's a friend of yours, he'll be sure to kill him slowly and painfully. I almost smiled at the Strigoi's last effort at defiance. The problem with my strategy here was that the Strigoi could be lying. I'd have no way of knowing. Something in his response made me think he wasn't. It sounded like he thought I was referring to a human or a damper, not a Strigoi. He's useless then, I said. I leaned back and glanced at Dennis. Go ahead and kill him. It was what Dennis had been dying to do. He didn't hesitate, his stake striking hard and swift through the Strigoi's heart. The frantic struggling stilled a moment later. The evil light faded from the red eyes. We stood up, and I saw my companions' faces watching me with apprehension and fear. Rose, asked Dennis at last. What are you hoping to dash? Never mind that. I interrupted, moving over to the unconscious human girl's side. Kneeling down, I examined her neck. He'd bitten her, but not much blood had been taken. The wound was relatively small and bled only a little. She stirred slightly and moaned when I touched her, which I took as a good sign. Carefully, I dragged her away from the trash can and out into the light where she'd be most noticeable. The Strigoi, however, I dragged into as dark a place as I could, almost completely obscuring him. After that, I asked to borrow Dennis's cell phone and dialed the number I'd kept crumpled in my pocket for the last week. After a couple of rings, Sydney answered in Russian. She sounded sleepy. Sydney? This is Rose. There was a slight pause. Rose? What's going on? Are you back in St. Petersburg? Yes, where are you? Novosibirsk. Do you guys have agents here? Of course. She said warily. Why? I've got something for you to clean up. Oh dear. Hey, at least I'm calling. And it's not like me ridding the world of another Strigoi is a bad thing. Besides, didn't you want me to let you know? Yes. Where are you? I put Dennis on the phone briefly so that he could explain our specific location. He handed the phone back to me when he finished. And I told Sydney about the girl. Is she seriously injured? Doesn't look like it, I said. What should we do? Leave her. The guy who's coming will make sure she's okay and doesn't go telling stories. He'll explain it when he gets there. Whoa, hey, I'm not going to be here when he arrives. Rose dash. I'm out of here. I told her. And I'd really appreciate it if you didn't tell anyone else that I called, say, like, Abe. Rose dash. Please, Sydney. Just don't tell. Or else, I hesitated. If you do, I'll stop calling when this happens. We're going to be taking down a few more. God, what next? First torture, now threats. Worse, I was threatening someone I liked. Of course, I was lying. I understood why Sydney's group did what they did, and I wouldn't risk the exposure. She didn't know that, though. And I prayed she'd think I was just unstable enough to risk revealing us to the world. Rose dash, she tried yet again. I didn't give her the chance. Thanks, Sydney. We'll be in touch. I disconnected and handed Dennis the phone. Come on, guys. We're not done tonight. It was clear they thought I was crazy to be interrogating Straggler. But considering how reckless they were sometimes, my behavior wasn't quite weird enough for them to lose their faith in me. Soon they grew enthusiastic again. High on the idea of our first kill on this trip. My uncanny ability to sense Straggler made me even cooler in their eyes, and I grew confident they'd pretty much follow me anywhere. We caught 2 more Straggler that night and managed to repeat the procedure. The results were the same. Lots of insults in Russian. No new information. Once I was convinced the Straggler had nothing to offer us, I'd let the unpromised go in for the kill. They loved it, but after that third one, I found myself growing weary both mentally and physically. I told the group we were going to go home, and then, while cutting around the back of the factory, I sensed a fourth Straggler. We jumped him. Another scuffle occurred. But we eventually managed to pin him as we had the others. Go ahead, I told Dennis. You know what to dash. I'm going to rip your throat out, the Straggler snarled. Whoa. This one spoke English. Dennis opened his mouth to begin the interrogation, but I shook my head. I'll take over. Like the other Straggler, he swore and struggled, even with the stake against his neck, making it hard for me to talk. Look, I said, growing impatient and tired, just tell us what we need to know. We're looking for a damper named Dmitry Belikov. I know him. The Straggler's voice was smug. And he's no damper. Without realizing it, I'd called Dmitry a damper. I was tired and had slipped up. No wonder the Straggler was so pleased to talk. He assumed we didn't know about Dmitry Turner. And like any arrogant Straggler, he was happy to tell us more, clearly in the hopes of causing US pain. Your friend has been awakened. He stalks the night with us now, drinking the blood of foolish girls like you. In a split second, 1,000 thoughts raced through my head. Holy crap. I'd come to Russia thinking it would be easy to find Dmitry. I'd had those hopes dashed in his hometown, really calling him to give up, and I'd swung the other way. Resigning myself to the near impossibility of my task. The thought that I might be close to something here was staggering. You're lying, I said. You've never seen him. I see him all the time. I've killed with him. My stomach twisted, and it had nothing to do with the Straggler's proximity. Don't think about Dmitry killing people. Don't think about Dmitry killing people. I said the words over and over in my head, forcing myself to stay calm. If that's true, I hissed back, then I've got a message for you to deliver to him. Tell him Rose Hathaway is looking for him. I'm not your errand boy, he said, glowering. My face slapped off, drawing balls, and eager made some pain. You're anything I want you to be. Now go tell Dmitry what I told you. Rose Hathaway. Rose Hathaway is looking for him. Say it. I pressed the point to his neck. Say my name so I know you'll remember. I'll remember it so I can kill you. The stake pressed harder, spilling blood. Rose Hathaway, he said. He spit at me but missed. Satisfied, I leaned back. Dennis watched me expectantly, stake poised and ready. Now we kill him. I shook my head. Now we let him go. Chapter 17. Convincing them to release a Straggler, particularly when we had entrapped, wasn't easy. My questioning hadn't made sense to them either, but they'd gone along with it. Letting a Straggler go, that was really crazy even for the unpromised. They exchanged uneasy glances with one another, and I wondered if they'd disobey. In the end, my harshness and authority won out. They wanted me as their leader and put their faith in my actions no matter how insane they seemed. Of course, once we did let the Straggler go, we had the new problem of making sure he actually went. At first, he started to attack again, and then, realizing he'd probably get overwhelmed, he finally skulked off. He gave us one last menacing look as he disappeared into the darkness. I didn't think being taken down by a group of teenagers had done a lot for his self-esteem. He gave me in particular a look of hatred, and I shuddered at the idea of him knowing my name. There was nothing to be done about it now. I could only hope my plan had a chance of working. Dennis and the others got over me letting the Straggler go once we made a few other kills that week. We fell into a routine, investigating clubs in dangerous parts of town, relying on my senses to tell us when danger was near. It was funny to me how much the group soon began to rely on my leadership. They claimed they wanted no part of the Guardian's rules and authority, but they responded surprisingly well to me telling them what to do. Well, more or less. Every once in a while, I'd see a bit of that unhinged recklessness. One of them would try to play hero. Underestimate a Straggler, or go in without the rest of us. Our tour nearly ended up with a concussion that way. As the largest of all of us, he'd gotten a bit cocky and was therefore caught off guard when a Straggler threw him into a wall. It had been a sobering moment for all of us. For a few agonizing moments. I'd feared our tour was dead end, that it was my fault as their leader. One of Sydney's alchemists had come, though I'd made sure not to be around, lest Abe find me and had treated our tour. The guy said our tour would be fine with some bed rest, meaning he had to stop hunting for a while. It was hard for him to do, and I had to yell at him when he tried to follow us one night, reminding him of all their friends who had died before because of such stupidity. Out in the human world, Dampiers tended to run on human schedules. Now I put myself on a nocturnal schedule, just like I'd been on at the academy. The others followed suit, except for Tamara, since she had a day job. I didn't want to be asleep during the time Straggler prowled the streets. I had called Sydney each time we left a kill, and word had to be getting around in the Straggler community that someone was doing a lot of damage. And if the Straggler we released had carried my message, some of those Straggler could specifically come looking for me. As days passed, our kills dropped a little, making me think the Straggler were indeed being cautious now. I couldn't decide if that was a good or bad thing, but I urged the others to be extra careful. They were beginning to revere me as a goddess, but I took no satisfaction in their adoration. My heart still ached from all that had happened with Lissa and Dmitry. I wrapped myself up in my task, trying only to think of working the Straggler community to get closer to Dmitry. But when we weren't out hunting Straggler, I had a lot of downtime with nothing to do. And so I kept visiting Lissa. I'd known there were a lot of kids like Mia who lived at the royal court, because their parents had jobs there. I didn't quite realize how many there were, though. Avery naturally knew them all. And to no one's surprise, at least not mine, most of them were spoiled and rich. The rest of Lissa's visit had been a series of other functions and formal parties. The more she listened to Royal Moroi talk business, the more it irritated her. She saw the same abuses of power she'd noted before. The The same unfair way of distributing guardians like they were property. The controversial issue of whether Moroi should learn to fight alongside the guardians was also still a hot topic. Most of the people Lissa ran into at court were of the old school mentality, let guardians fight and Moroi stay protected. After seeing the results of that policy and the successes that had happened when people like Christian and I tried to change it, hearing the selfishness among the Moroi elite enraged Lissa. She welcomed her escapes from these events whenever she could, anxious to run wild with Avery. Avery was always able to find people to hang out with and attend parties of a much different nature than Tatiana's. Stifling court politics never came up at these parties. But there were still plenty of other things to drag Lissa's mood down. In particular, Lissa felt her guilt, anger, and depression over me spiraling deeper and deeper. She'd seen enough of spirit's effects on her moods to recognize potential warning signs, though she hadn't been actively using spirit while on this trip. Regardless of the mood's cause, she still continued to do her best to seek distraction and drown her depression. Watch it, warned Avery one evening. She and Lissa were at a party the night before they had to fly back to the academy. A lot of those who lived at court had permanent housing. And this party was at the townhouse of some Selski who served as an aide on a committee Lissa didn't know. Lissa didn't really know their host either, but that didn't matter. Save that his parents were out of town. Watch what? Asked Lissa, staring around the sights. The townhouse had a courtyard out back, lit up by tiki torches and strings of twinkling lights. There were drinks and food in full force, and some Moroi guy had a guitar out and was trying to impress girls with his musical skills which were non-existent. In fact, his music was so awful that he might have discovered a new way to kill Strigoi. He was cute enough, though, that his admirers didn't seem to care what he played. This, said Avery, pointing at Lissa's martini. Are you keeping track of how many of those you're taking down? Not from what I can tell, said Adrian. He was sprawled on a lounge chair nearby, a drink in his own hand. Lissa felt a bit amateur compared to them. While Avery was slightly wild and flirtatious self, she didn't have the crazed or stupid air of someone completely trashed. Lissa didn't know how much the other girl had been drinking, but it was presumably a lot since Avery always had a drink in hand. Likewise, Adrian never seemed to be without a beverage, the effects of which mostly mellowed him out. Lissa supposed they had a lot more experience than her. She'd gone soft over the years. I'm fine, lied Lissa, who was watching her surroundings spin a little and seriously contemplating joining some girls dancing on a table across the courtyard. Avery's lips quirked into a smile, though her eyes showed a bit of worry. Sure, just don't get sick or anything.
With her prince, fair as ever, made the queen scream with rage, giving her away. As punishment, Snow White ordered her to dance before the guests in red-hot shoes until she fell down, dead. The queen's gift is kept at Cottage White as a permanent reminder that good always triumphs over evil. Cottage White Museum is sponsored by the Everwood Society for Cultural Preservation. No babies, animals, or giants allowed inside. Behind the den, the kitchen was roped off, just like the staircase, but Agatha peeked in to see a dusty, deserted nook. No footprints on the floor, or signs of life, except for a few flies milling around a leaky faucet. Agatha? Tedros called outside. Where are you? Agatha sighed, stomach relaxing. The scream must have been one of the dwarves after all. She shuddered at such a morbid thought and hustled towards the front door, determined to get to League headquarters. Whoever this League was, her mother had trusted them to help her. You must save Sophie, as Stefan saved you. Callus's voice echoed. Agatha stopped cold in the foyer. A creak echoed somewhere upstairs. Then it went quiet. Slowly, she raised her eyes to the ceiling. She knew a sensible princess would have called her prince, but instead she was moving into the den again, slipping off her clumps one by one before she left them on the lambskin chair. She felt her bare toes rake through the feathers of the rug, her eyes pinned on the ceiling, until she squeezed under the rope at the rear of the room. She slid up the stairs on her hands and knees like a cat, taking time between steps, so the creaks and cracks of the stairs were camouflaged by the swinging squeaks at the front door. At the top of the stairs was a narrow hallway with 2 rooms. Agatha rose up carefully and peeked into the first. 7 small beds lay in a cramped row, as if in an orphanage hall, each neatly made with different coloured sheets, matching the tunics of the 7 dead bodies outside. Agatha felt a rush of sadness. Death had been rare to her before last night, and now it followed her like a shroud. What was it like to be alive one moment, like her mother, like the crypt keeper, like these 7 helpers of good, and then be gone the next? What happens to all your thoughts, your prayers, your dreams? What happens to all the love you yet to give? Her body quivered, as if she'd gone too deep, and she was suddenly aware of the stillness around her. Why am I still here? She berated herself, turning around. Tedros would be worried sick by now. Quickly, she stepped out of the dwarves' quarters and leaned over to check the next room. Agatha grabbed the wall in shock. In a frost-white bedroom, a frail female's body lay face down on the wood floor, her head hidden under the canopied bed. A crystal crown gleamed on its side nearby, as if it had tumbled off her when she fell. But the dead woman wasn't what made Agatha gape in horror. An old crone in black was kneeling next to the body. She had red eyes and a pig nose, a patchwork of stitches and brown shriveled flesh flaking off her, just like Red Riding Hood's wolf and Jack's giant in the woods. In her claw-like hand, she clutched a musty storybook, pulled open to its last page. A painting of a prince kissing Snow White back to life, while 7 dwarves smiled on blissfully, a dead witch on the ground behind them. A dead witch that looked just like the old crone holding the storybook. That was the old, the witch purred, leering at the book's last page. Before Agatha's eyes, the painting magically redrew, until the old witch now crouched over Snow White's dead body instead, the dwarves behind her, all slain. And this is the new, the witch grinned. Agatha's focus swung back to the corpse, half hidden under the bed, to the royal crown askew, and a deep dread snaked up her spine, remembering something Jack's giant had said on Necro Ridge. Should be out fixing our stories like the others. You'll give us a turn at our stories soon enough, Red Riding Hood's wolf had answered. The witch snapped the storybook shut with a triumphant cackle, jolting Agatha out of her thoughts. She glanced up to see the hag rearing to her feet, her back angled to the door. Agatha! Tedros' voice yelled outside. The witch dropped the book to the floor. Before Agatha could move, she spun and met her eyes with a lethal stare. Agatha shrank into the hall's corner, flattening against the wall. The witch drew a thin, jewel-handled dagger from her cloak, caked with dried blood. Agatha whirled towards the staircase, too far to run. She spun back to see the witch prowl towards her, trapping her in the corner. Agatha's finger glowed gold with terror, the witch 10 feet away, but she couldn't remember a single spell from class. Agatha opened her mouth to scream for her prince. The witch was too fast. She held the knife at Agatha's throat like a bullet. With a cry, Agatha shot a ray of gold light from her finger, and the knife turned into a peach-petaled daisy, floating to the floor. Gulping breaths, Agatha stared at the flower, thankful Sophie had used the hex against her first year. It was the only spell she'd never forget. unusually powerful, reeking of decay, and held her up by the throat with her liver-spotted hand. Breath choked, Agatha glimpsed the charred scars across the witch's ankles and legs. Ordered to dance until she fell dead. Agatha remembered, struggling to stay conscious as the witch squeezed her neck harder. She and Sophie once danced in red-hot shoes too, a first-year punishment from Huber. Or was it second year? Agatha could feel her mind fading, the witch's thumb crushing her windpipe. She tried to think of Sophie's face as they danced. Her helpless face, those suffering eyes. Darkness strangled her, pulling her under. No, please, not yet. Sophie, I'll save you. A bolt of will flashed through her, and she sank her teeth into the witch's bony arm and bit as hard as she could. The old crone shrieked and let go. Agatha doubled over, gagging and wheezing, the witch still gaping at her, as if biting wasn't part of a good girl's playbook, as if this greasy-haired, bug-eyed punk might be one of the evils after all. Agatha kneed her in the gut and dove for the stairs, about to reach the first step, only to feel the witch's boot crush the back of her leg. Agatha buckled to the floor, slamming her nose into the wood. She felt the hot blood seeping out of it and staunched it with her hand as she twirled around to defend against the witch. But the hallway was empty. The witch gone. Agatha hobbled to the edge of the stairs. The den was as quiet as when she came in, the slatted window over the bookshelf wide open and blowing in the breeze. Tedros burst through the front door, his face cherry red. Agatha, where are... He saw her on the staircase and flushed 2 shades redder. Do you want me to have a heart attack? I'm screaming like a fool, not knowing if you're alive or dead, and here you are playing hide and seek like a child on a playground, looking a holy bloody mess, and... Tedros' face changed. Agatha, he whispered, looking very scared. Why are you bleeding? Agatha shook her head, tears welling, hyperventilating too fast to talk. A cry came from outside. Agatha and Tedros went rigid with twin gasps. Uma. Instantly, the prince dashed out the door, Agatha racing behind him. Princess Uma sat against a tree, near the dwarves' corpses, her eyes spooked wide and legs out straight like a porcelain doll's. Tedros skidded to his knees in front of her, jostling her by the shoulders. Uma didn't move. What's wrong with her? He cried. Agatha landed next to him and touched Uma's face. Her fingers made a hollow sound on her teacher's ashen skin. Why didn't I have a backup plan in case something happened? Why can't I think straight? Now, instead of finding the one place where they'd be safe tonight, they were on some wild goose chase, carrying a petrified teacher and chasing a time-obsessed bunny to who knows where. With Tedros lagging under Uma's weight, Agatha kept pace with the rabbit for more than an hour, silently punishing herself for their predicament, until she finally glimpsed a wisp of white smoke emanating through pine trees ahead. Drawing closer, Agatha began to smell a faint tinge of sandalwood mixed with a familiar scent she couldn't quite place. And, as they moved into a tiny clearing, she saw that the smoke plumes were coming from a hole in the dirt, half covered with dead fern fronds. The rabbit kicked the ferns aside and disappeared down the burrow before peeking his face through the gap impatiently. Agatha paused, reluctant to follow a stranger into a hole. Tedros barreled right by her. Nothing to lose, he mumbled. Before Agatha could argue, her prince lowered Uma into the hole and slid in behind her. Irritated, Agatha lowered herself down after him, landing awkwardly in darkness before Tedros caught her to his chest, soaking her with sweat. He smells good, Agatha noticed, inhaling his minty fresh scent. How could a boy possibly smell like spring fields after everything they'd just been through? She suddenly thought of Sophie, who smelled of honey cream even after traipsing up Graves Hill in the worst heat. Maybe that's why Tedros missed Sophie, Agatha thought bitterly. They could lie around all day sniffing each other, flawless gold-haired idols, while here she was, a holy bloody mess, reeking of stress, dirt, and undead witch. Anyone here? Tedros called. Agatha snapped to attention, embarrassed by her thoughts. It was pitch black in the hole, the rabbit nowhere to be seen. Hello? Tedros echoed. Nothing answered. The prince held out his hand and felt a wall of solid earth in front of him. Why do we always end up in dirt? Agatha's stomach rumbled. Maybe the dove was telling us to eat the rabbit instead of follow him. Or maybe the rabbit was telling us to leave Uma here while we go look for League headquarters. Do you want us to dump a petrified teacher in a hole and leave? Said Agatha, flabbergasted. It's not like she's going anywhere. Suppose you'll dump me in a hole the moment I'm inconvenient too, Agatha murmured, strangely confessional in the dark. Oh, then you can go get your sweet-smelling, beautiful, vibrant Sophie all alone. Agatha vented, unable to stop herself. You didn't happen to eat any strange mushrooms on the way, did you? Go ahead, laugh. You can name your children Blonde and Blonder. Never pegged you as the jealous type, Tedros marveled. Jealous? Why? Because you almost kissed her as a boy and a girl? Because you can make her feel loved in a way that I can't? Me? Jealous? Agatha ranted, thoroughly ashamed of herself now. Isn't Sophie supposed to be the crazy one? That you wouldn't leave her in a dark pit? And we thought Tweedledee and Tweedledum were hopeless, said a hoary voice. Agatha and Tedros choked, recognizing it at once, and twirled to see a torch spark to flame in the grip of a white-bearded gnome wearing a belted green coat with a silver swan over the heart and a pointy orange hat. A gnome Agatha thought had been killed in a fire, but now here he was, alive in a secret den. She burst into a smile, glowing with relief. Yuba didn't smile back. First, you lose a teacher because you failed to protect each other in the face of mortal danger. Then, you fight so often and loudly that you've alerted the entire woods as to your whereabouts. Now you're so busy insulting each other that you forget to use a simple glow spell to illuminate your surroundings in the time that a cave troll could have bashed both your heads to smithereens. If it wasn't for a rabbit rescuing you from yourselves, you two nincompoops would be dead before dawn. He lashed, fingers twitching on his white staff as if he wanted to beat them with it. A bad group is one thing, but you two Evers might just be the worst Evers ever. Agatha and Tedros looked down, humiliated. Yuba sighed. Lucky for you, the League needs you as much as you need it. Torches roared to flame, lighting up a squad of strangers behind him in a giant cave headquarters the size of a small house. Presenting the Honourable League of 13, Legendary Legion of Good and Enlightenment, Yuba proclaimed with an imperious smile, clearly expecting the others to look impressed, awed, or at least grateful for the glorious platoon that they had come all this way to see. Agatha and Tedros blanched in horror instead. Because the League of 13, that was their only hope to save Sophie, the League of 13, that was their only hope to stay alive, were all very, very old. Chapter 10. The Missing 13th. You've got to be kidding, Tedros cracked as he and Agatha goggled at the saggy, ancient crew. Agatha counted 4 men and 4 women, a geriatric gang of liver spots, turkey necks, hairy-eared ears, foggy eyes, yellowed teeth, beady grins, bony limbs, and heads of sparse, colourless, or poorly dyed hair. 2 of the 8 were in rickety wheelchairs, 3 had walking canes, 2 were hunched and bandy-legged, and 1 was a morbidly obese woman in a muumuu, slathering on makeup at a mirror. All of them had silver swan crests over their hearts, like Uma, Yuba, and the White Rabbit, badges of membership to a league her mother had trusted with her daughter's life. She sent us here for a reason, thought Agatha desperately. Would they rip off masks, revealing invincible warriors? Would they magically turn young like the schoolmaster? Agatha held her breath, waiting and praying for something to happen. The league blinked back, like fish in an aquarium, waiting for something to happen too. Told you they wouldn't recognize us, grumped the fat woman at the mirror. Recognize you? In the reflection, Agatha glimpsed the woman's pink, hoggish pallor, squinty green eyes, wide jowls, hideously rouged cheeks, and nest of flat curls that she tried to dye brown and had turned blue instead. She looked like a doll, salvaged from the bottom of a swimming pool. I'm quite sure I've never seen you, or any of you, in my life, Agatha said, scanning the group. She turned to Tedros, hoping he'd seen something in them she hadn't, but her prince was red as a fire ant, about to explode. This is who's supposed to get us to Sophie, he barked, blue eyes raking the puke-coloured carpet, flower-patterned sofas, moth-eaten curtains, and 13 hard, thin mattresses split into 2 rows. A retirement home for the about-to-be-dead. Yuba yanked him to the corner. How dare you speak that way to the League, he hissed, peeking to make sure the others couldn't hear. You know the lengths I've gone to find them, to bring them here. And here, you act as if they have to introduce themselves to you like common folk. You, a boy who has no accomplishments to his name. Tell that to a king in a few weeks, Tedros bellowed. You arrogant brat. The way you bungled things, you won't make it a few days, let alone to a coronation. Yuba shot back. First thing I'll do is outlaw old gnomes. Listen, my mother knew the League would help us, Agatha broke in, giving Tedros a calm-down look. That's why she wrote them. So clearly we're missing something. Yeah, like people who aren't 1,000 years old, Tedros lashed, earning another miffed look from his princess. What? He said, turning his fury on her. We barely escape our own execution, then we learn our best friend loves an evil sorcerer, then we travel night and day surviving zombies and witches and graves, all to find a League your mother promised would get us to Sophie, and this is it? Bollocks, let's go. Better chance of breaking into the school ourselves. She was my mother, Tedros, Agatha said, and I trust her more than anyone in this world to know what's best for us, even you. Tedros fell quiet. Agatha glanced back and saw the old swan-crested strangers completely ignoring them now, knitting, reading, napping, card-playing, and pulling out false teeth to eat their gruel. Her faith in her mother suddenly wavered. Listen to me, both of you, said Yuba. When our 13th member returns, your questions will be answered. Until then, we both need some strong turnip tea and a bowl of oat porridge. Having survived in the woods these last few months, after 115 years of sanctuary at school, I know firsthand how intense your journey must have been. 13th member. Agatha skimmed the room. I only count 8. Then she noticed the White Rabbit in the corner, slicing a carrot into fifths on a plate, the silver swan over his heart glimmering in torchlight. 9. 10, actually, said Tedros, and Agatha followed his eyes to the silver swan on Yuba's green coat. A founding member of the League, the gnome puffed proudly. And Uma makes 11, of course, and... Yuba flushed. Uma? Goodness me. He whirled to the princess, petrified in the corner, leaving her there like a house cat. Tink! Tink, where are you? Something snored loudly behind Agatha, and she turned to see a pear-shaped fairy the size of a fist bolt away and fall off the dirty ottoman. The fairy craned up properly, with poofy grey hair, a green dress 8 sizes too small, ragged gold wings, and garish red lipstick. Eyes darting right and left, as if she knew she was supposed to be awake but had no idea why, she spotted Uma frozen in the corner and yelped, flapping and sputtering towards her like a dying bee. Then she slipped her hand into her dress, snatched a handful of what looked like mouldy soot, and dumped it goonishly over Uma's head. Nothing happened. Dad took me to Ali Baba's harem for my birthday once. This is so much more embarrassing, Tedros mumbled, stomping towards the entrance hole to leave. Uma coughed behind him. Tedros swiveled to see the princess levitating 3 feet off the ground, her skin filling out from pasty white to its usual rich olive colour. Uma stretched her smooth, lithe arms into the air with a yawn, smiled at the fairy glassily, and collapsed to the ground, asleep once more. Here you were, worried about your fairy dust being too old, Tink, Yuba chuckled, patting the fairy's head. The fairy still looked gloomy and spurted squeaky gibberish. Don't be ridiculous, Tink. You can't expect to have the same stamina as when you were 16. Besides, we didn't need Uma to fly from here to Shazabah. We just needed your dust to unpetrify her. A few sound hours of sleep and she'll be good as new. Now, where were we? The gnome mulled, turning back to the Evers. Oh yes, Rabbit makes 9, Uma makes 10, I make 11, and Tinkerbell makes 12, so that just leaves... Tinkerbell, Agatha blurted. The real Tinkerbell, asked Tedros, staring at the fairy's mottled face, popped belly, and ash-coloured hair. But she's so... Agatha gave him a lethal look, but it was too late. Tinkerbell burst into sobs and hid under an ottoman. He didn't mean it, Tink, Yuba huffed, and smacked Tedros in the backside of his staff. I don't understand, Agatha said, bewildered. What is Tinkerbell doing here? Really found yourself some smarties, didn't you, Yuba? Said a bald, skinny man in a green vest with elfish ears and delicate features, knitting a lime green sock. Still can't see who we are. Maybe we need to count your rings like a tree, Tedros muttered, rubbing his behind. Go ahead, make all the old jokes you want, pretty boy, the bald man fired. As if you won't get to our age yourself someday. Well, it seems our 2 amateurs need introductions after all, Yuba scolded, giving Tedros and Agatha furious scowls before shoving them into 2 of the rocking chairs. He turned back to his league. Who wants to go first? Don't see why we should introduce ourselves, the sock-knitting man crabbed. Don't see why we should let these 2 stay here at all. Yuba exhaled impatiently. Because these 2 Evers are our only hope to... What's the point? You heard the boy on death's door anyway, the bald man pouted. Oh, come on, Yuba said, softening. What did you say when I came to fetch you from Neverland? Holed up in your treehouse all alone, refusing to join the League, even when I told you your life was in terrible danger. But then I told you about these 2 young Evers, and you lit up like a little boy. Told me you'd do anything to be around young people again, but they were the only ones who ever truly understood you, Peter. Peter looked up at Yuba, blue eyes glistening. Then he looked back down. Tink made me come, he muttered. The fairy squealed in protest and pelted him with a lump of gruel. Agatha and Tedros gawped at each other. Peter. Peter Pan. I'm with Peter, boomed the huge blue-haired woman spinning from the mirror. Not even out of school, these little brats. Should be licking our feet and begging for autographs. Instead, they somehow get their own fairy tale. Students, a fairy tale. And now that tale's got its panties in a knot, waking our old villains from the dead and dragging us straight out of our ever-afters. Ever-afters? Ha! Chimed a gangly, high-voiced man in suspenders and beige breeches, with big twinkly eyes, a long nose, and a full head of white hair. Tiny round scars marked all the joints of his long, tanned limbs, as if he'd once been screwed together. First of all, Peter can barely leave his house, he's so depressed at growing up. Second, I'd never wish to be a real boy if the blue fairy told me real boys end up with arthritis, and bad eyes, and permanent constipation. And third, Ella told me herself she preferred sweeping cinders to being a queen. When did I ever say that? The fat woman squawked. Last night, the long-nosed man replied, looking surprised by her question. You drank a barrel of wine and told me you missed cleaning for your stepsisters, because at least you felt useful and stayed fit, and now you're old and bored and big as a house. Who asked you? Thundered the woman. You spent half your life as a puppet. First they get mad at me for lying, now they get mad at me for telling the truth, moped the long-nosed man, curling into a sofa. Agatha's and Tedros' eyes bulged even wider. Pinocchio, said Tedros. Cinderella, said Agatha. Don't give me that face, Cinderella sneered back at her. For being Camelot's supposed future queen, you ain't much to look at yourself. Her hawkish green eyes shot down to Agatha's plumps. But no one wants to see those feet in glass slippers. Hey now, she's my princess. Tedros jumped in. I don't blame you, handsome. Cinderella smirked, voice smooth as an eel. Your daddy didn't have good taste in girls either. Tedros looked like he'd been kicked in the pants. Yuba sighed. Professor Dovey had just as much faith in Agatha as she did in you, Ella, so I suggest you treat our guests with respect. We have the respect when these two studenten fix the mess, croaked a wild-haired, hunchbacked man in a wheelchair with owlish grey eyes and a harsh foreign accent. Thinks they're special because historian writes their story? Well, at least our stories have end, yes? But these two change ending again and again. Are we happy yet? Are we happy yet? Bah, fools. Now see, schoolmaster young, evil redoing stories, and dead witch hunting me. I have to kill all over again. I hit her. Handsome, and I am not killing smelly witch again, said a wild-haired woman in a wheelchair next to him with the same accent, her big grey eyes flaying Agatha and Tedros. Your story bringing villains out of graves. Your responsibility put them back. She smiled phonily. And I regret.
I found two books that is about college, and the first of all, when I found was this one. The first one is The Test, and I listened to that book. I like it kind of divergence with Hunger Games. This is book 2, this is Dutch. So this is an option. And then we also have this one, The Air Awakens series by Elisa Kova. And I read book 1 and 2, so Air Awakens and Firefall. The next one is Earth's Ending. You see that over here. So this is a thick book, but the books are like book. And number 28 is a book by an author I have read before. I got the series Sinners of Saints from my parents and they got it in Turkey. So I read first book is Vicious and book 2 is Focus. So what is this about? Oh, Rosie has an illness and sometimes she goes interesting to spin again. Number 2. So I need to read a translation. Number 7. Only 7. Romantasy. Started on the 26th of the month. No, we are going to skip that one. guys, I found finally the book with an H cap, which was mostly out of sight. This is A Course Dark and Lone by Bridget Kemmer, and the H cap. But number 32. The Crown. Go through them again. So what it is? So these are the first 4 books on the series I want to focus on. We have Vampire Moon, book number 4, Jasmine Mess with the Coral Shifters Universe, book number 2, Shifters, Shadowhunters Universe, book number 3. Then we have School of Good for Good and Evil, book number 2. So those are the main books I will focus on. Then we have the Air Awakens series, and that we are now on book number 3, Earth's End. We have this one, Ruckus by L.G. Chip, so number 2. Then we had a standalone, and for that one I picked this one, One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. And each has the curse, So Dark and Lonely. Then Wings I picked because we need a small top. And then the last book that didn't fit in front, but it's in the back, will be The Study because I needed a translated book. So these are the 10 books I picked for my first yard sale. So hopefully I will finish them. I probably won't, but I need to please. I need to, and I need to finish them. And I still have a lot of books to read. Also, my December TBR is not going that well. It's good. We don't mind. So, thank you for watching. Bye.
Wedding until you came along, said a freckle-faced man with salt and pepper hair, wearing a brown tunic and white lederhosen. He was holding hands with an elegant white-haired woman in a revealing puce gown. Now we're hiding from my man-eating giant and Rose's thirst-obsessed fairy. When Jack and I should be picking out a cake, Briar Rose glared. That makes 7 of us who think these young twerps should sleep in the woods, trumped Cinderella. Tip squeaked. 8, said Cinderella. Tedros and Agatha gawked at the gang of famous old fairy tale heroes who just voted them out of their cave. It's why I tried to avoid you meeting Evers on the trails. Boomer yawned in the corner. Everyone blames you for messing up the woods. She fell back asleep. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I think they're adorable, chirped a short, big-bottomed old woman with a dyed brown bob and a red hooded cape. Isn't that what being old is for? Mentoring younger folk to get through their stories? Oh, go back to Granny's, you blithering ass, growled Cinderella. Red Riding Hood shut up. You all act as if we don't need our young guests. Yuba's voice slashed through the cave. Everyone twirled to see the old gnome standing in front of the moth-holed curtain hanging across the cave wall, the white rabbit standing at his side like a magician's assistant. Let me remind you that 1 week ago, the schoolmaster placed his ring on his queen's finger, earning her vow of true love. That same night, the villains rose from their graves on Necro Ridge, and the Crypt Keeper was killed. On Yuba's cue, the rabbit drew the curtain back, revealing dozens of storybooks spread open to their last pages, tacked to the walls with sharpened sticks. 2 days later, Rapunzel and her prince were kidnapped by Mother Gothel and hurled from her tower to their deaths. The gnome declared, illuminating one of the storybooks with his staff and its gruesome new ending to Rapunzel's story. And yesterday, Tom Thumb was eaten alive by a giant, while Rumpelstiltskin killed the miller's daughter who'd once guessed his name. Yuba went on, lighting up 2 more storybooks with revised endings. And today, Snow White and her 7 dwarves have been murdered at Cottage White, where they once lived happily. He snapped his staff like a whip, lighting up a last storybook with a loud crack. All of these victims refused to leave their homes and join our league in hiding, as did many others who may soon suffer the same fate. A tense silence filled the cave as Agatha took in the painting of a dead maiden and her 7 dwarfs, the same scene the witch had presided over as it transformed. Agatha rubbed unconsciously at the deep bruises on her forearm and wrist. Snow White is dead, Pinocchio whispered. Pretty, sweet Snow, echoed Peter Pan. Not that pretty, Cinderella mumbled. The league members all gazed at Snow White's terrible new ending, their eyes wet and scared, as if her death suddenly made the others real. I saw who killed her. Agatha's voice came out before she even knew it. The whole league slowly looked up at her. Agatha slid her focus to the floor, palms clammy as she relived the scene in the glen. It was the wicked queen in an old woman's disguise. Her ankles and legs burnt up just like the fairy tale said. Her skin was peeling off like a corpse, and she smelled like decaying flesh. And her eyes? They were bloodshot and dead, like there was no soul inside of her. Agatha shook her head, trying to understand. She could have killed me or Uma or Tedros, but she didn't, as if she'd already done what she came to do. She looked up at the league. The wolf and Jack's giant talked about it on Necro Ridge too, getting a turn at changing their stories. We didn't know what they meant. Wolf? On Necro Ridge? Red Riding Hood cut in. My wolf? And my giant, echoed Jack, clutching Briar Rose. They're all out there then, Agatha said anxiously. Dead villains, waiting for their turn to rewrite their fairy tales. That's what's happening, isn't it? Doesn't make a shred of sense, said Tedros, turning to Yuba. Why would the Schoolmaster's army waste time rewriting a bunch of old stories? Why kill old heroes who aren't a threat to anyone? Why not attack the Ever Kingdoms instead? Even Yuba was tight-lipped, fingers fidgeting on his staff as if he'd pondered the question and had no answer. The old heroes blinked at the no, fear filling their faces. We are heroes, yes? Hansel challenged. We must fight back. Against the 200 dead witches, monsters, and Hordosvart running around the woods? Don't be an imbecile, Gretel snapped. Why do you think we're here in Stinky Cave, hiding? Can't hide for long. They'll find us all eventually, no matter how often we move headquarters, soured Cinderella. Schoolmaster's got love on his side now. He's invincible. What have we got except age spots and crypt necks? Bella's right, Jack sighed. As long as the Schoolmaster's got a queen who loves him, all of us are going to end up dead as snow. Then what do we do? Mewled Red Riding Hood. The only thing we can do, said Yuba, eyes shifting to Agatha and Tedros. Convince his queen to destroy that love. The league went quiet. Crackpot plan again? Cinderella murmured. You really think you can do it? You really think you can make your friends destroy the Schoolmaster's ring? Peter Pan asked, peering at the two young Evers. Why would she give up true love for you? Pinocchio prodded. Agatha felt emotion rising into her throat. I wish there was a way to explain me and Sophie. We're different. Very different. And still the same. Sure, we fought and pushed each other's buttons, and we're terrible at listening to each other, but we shared the same heart. Saw life through each other's eyes. I never thought I could live without her. She paused, tangled in memories. Somehow things changed. Maybe that's growing up. I don't know. Every time we tried to hold on to each other, we hurt each other instead. It was both our faults. But mine most of all. I stopped telling her the truth. I stopped trusting the one person who taught me how to trust in the first place. I thought I'd lost her forever, that it was too late to ever make things the way they were before. But deep down, I still feel like there's a way. There has to be a way. Agatha managed a sad smile. Because if anyone can make Sophie see what love really is, it's her best friend, isn't it? The league's old faces melted to childlike stares, as if finally seeing the young girl with hope instead of disdain. Tedros stepped next to his princess, chest proud. Exactly. Leave Sophie to me. Agatha's smile vanished. The league looked between them, thoroughly confused who Sophie's best friend was. All that matters now is that we get to Sophie, Tedros started. Right, Agatha interjected. And we know she's somewhere in the school for good and evil, which means getting in and finding her without being caught. Tedros spoke over her. Wait, Gretel shot back. Schoolmaster is young and strong. Schoolmaster has both clasps. Schoolmaster has army of dead. And you think you can get into his school? Agatha frowned. That's the whole reason we came to you, obviously. Because we need your help breaking into... Help? Your mother's message said, hide you. Hansel jeered from his wheelchair. Does it look like we can help? We can barely get to the toilet these days, let alone lead a raid on a castle, cracked Cinderella, expelling a loud fart. The league members burst into laughter, even the white rabbit. Some sneak attack. With my joints, they'll hear us 5 miles away. Pinocchio quipped. Don't worry, Fee. We can beat them with our canes, said Peter. Or my basket of goodies, hard and crusty by now, giggled Red Riding Hood. Gretel shrieked a snort, and the others howled so loudly, doubled over with tears, that even Uma jolted awake at the noise. Agatha glanced at Tedros, who scowled at her venomously for trying to make him believe in these useless old fogies. She swiveled back to the heroes. But that's why we came all this way. That's why we trusted in you. My mother wrote the League to protect us. My mother told us you'd help. Because your mother knew that the League of 13 had a 13th member, said a deep voice. Agatha and Tedros turned to see a tall shadow. It's Dean 15 years ago. Just like you should have abandoned your friend when she was placed in the school for good. Thankfully, both of us learned our lesson before we could make any more mistakes. Her clenched jaw eased. And what's remarkable is that for all our errors, we're both still alive. And not just alive. We're finally on the winning team. Once upon a time, evil had majestic victories too. Vanilla the Fairy, Children Noodle Soup, Rabid Bear Rex, and others long forgotten. All anyone remembers now is 200 years of good victories over and over, robbing balance from our world, until evil became a death sentence, pitied and maligned, until good became nothing but balls, kisses, and arrogance. But you've changed all that, Sophie. For the first time, evil has love on its side, because of how hard you and Rafal have fought for each other. Don't you see? Your fairy tale can reverse the slaughter I fought against my whole life. All you have to do is prove you love Rafal as much as Agatha loves Tedros. That you'll sacrifice for your love as much as Agatha would for her prince. Lady Lesso glowered darkly at her. Which means you must kill Agatha and Tedros when they come for you. Kill me. Sophie squeaked like a squirrel, bursting into shivers. My best friends. No. I said I'd fight with Rafal, but I'd defend him if they came. Defend? No, my dear. Evil attacks, and good defends. And when evil attacks, it kills. I warned you our very first day of class, Sophie. When you are evil, there is no escaping your nemesis. The moment you began having nemesis dreams of Agatha's face your first year, your fate as enemies was sealed forever. Much as I tried to believe both of you an exception. Sophie was still shaking her head, emitting yips and croaks instead of words. Listen to me, Sophie. Lady Lesso's tone cut sharper. I told you the story of my child for a reason. As long as Agatha is alive, you will never have a happy ending. Either you kill Agatha and her true love, or they will kill yours. Those are the only two ways your fairy tale ends. I can't. I just want to be happy. Why do I have to kill anyone? Because this is your storybook, you and Agatha's, said Lady Lesser. That is why the historian has yet to close it. It is waiting for you to make your choice between who lives at the end, your best friend or your true love. Good or evil. Sophie clutched her ring with shaking fingers. But what if Agatha doesn't feel like my nemesis anymore? What if I don't even feel evil at all? Lady Lesser gripped Sophie's hand across the desk. Sophie, you wear the ring of evil's darkest soul. You brought evil back from the dead and unleashed hell on good just so that you can have a boy to love. Can you think of anything more evil? Sophie rankled. That isn't fair. I didn't know any of this would happen. Ask yourself then. If you could save good, would you sacrifice reform? After finally finding someone who loved you for your true self, would you choose to be alone, just so Agatha and Tedros can be happy? Sophie followed her eyes out the window to Rafal soaring over the blue forest, back to his tower in the sky. Everyone else in the world had betrayed her when she needed them most. Family, friends, princes. But not him. She could still feel herself flying in his arms, safe and protected. She could still feel his passionate warning, cold at her core. No one will ever love you. Could you give him up, Sophie? Lady Lesser pressed. A single scared tear fell down Sophie's cheek. No, she whispered. Then you aren't just evil, said Lady Lesser, letting go of her. You are its deserved queen. Sophie shook her head. But you know who I really am. Last year you and I fought for good with Agatha and Professor Toby. All of us were a team. And you and I have paid our price for that disloyalty. Your price is that you must now destroy the friends you should have disowned long ago. And my price is... Lady Lesser's lips quivered, her gaze drifting to the empty desk across the room. She swallowed something and straightened in her chair. Look, I'm here to help you, Sophie. Because like you, I too have a second chance to prove my loyalty to evil. And this time, we can't fail. Even if our leader now has the maturity of a pubescent boy. She grimaced sourly. Now pay attention to what I'm about to say. Lady Lesser flattened both hands on the desk and crouched forward like a panther. Agatha and Tedros will soon try to break into this school to see you. The fate of good rests on them earning back your loyalty and killing Rafal before the sun extinguishes completely. Do not doubt their resolve or wiles. They do not care about your happy ending, only theirs. And if they take away Rafal, what will you have left? Sophie looked away, an old darkness rearing into her heart. Just like my mother. Lady Lesser arched her brows, intrigued. My mother was the third wheel, watching my father and her best friend fall in love, Sophie said, eyes pinned to the floor. And my father and Honora didn't care. Because they knew your mother didn't have the courage to fight them? Sophie nodded. That's why she died so young. She couldn't face the rest of her life alone. She just gave up. And it looks like your best friends are betting an old story can be made new, said the dean. Sophie slowly lifted red eyes. Like mother, like daughter, said Lady Lesser. Is that what you want? Sophie's body hardened to steel. My job as dean is to ensure you do not end up alone, Sophie. Lady Lesser soothed. My job is to ensure you and Rafal win your happy never after. But I made you a teacher because I need you to find out how Agatha and Tedros plan to break in. Sophie frowned. How would I know how they plan to? Because there is a spy working for your friends inside this school, said Lady Lesser. Was spying on her? That's how desperate they were to destroy her happy ending. Suddenly, any remaining desire to see her best friends scorched to wrath. I haven't told Rafal, of course. He's so drugged up on teenage testosterone that he'd exterminate every last student in his school, bragged Lady Lesser. I need you to find out who the spy is, Sophie. A white mouse messenger suggests it's an Eva, but you know Agatha and Tedros' friends better than I. As a teacher, you can keep your eye on any suspects and help us uncover how exactly your friends plan to invade our castle. Sophie bridled. But I don't have the foggiest idea how to teach a class. Pollux has been teaching your class the past few weeks and will stay on to help you settle in, especially with double the number of students to manage. That said, I'm quite sure they'll prefer you to that twit, even if you pick your nose the whole time. Focus on finding the spy, Sophie. We don't have much time. Agatha and her prince will be here in days. And if you don't end your fairy tale now, the sun will soon end it for all of us. Sophie nodded, adrenaline coursing through her. Then she saw the empty beanie desk in the corner. Guilt dampened the storm inside of her. But surely Professor Dovey knows a way to close our storybook without me hurting anyone. Professor Dovey is no longer a dean, Lady Lesser said stiffly. Where is she? Sophie asked, startled. She and the other good teachers have been imprisoned in a secure location where they will remain until the schoolmaster deems otherwise. Sophie gawked at her. But she was your friend. You two always helped each other. Like you once helped Agatha. Lady Lesser's purple eyes cast down as she caressed the basket of plums. But a witch can't be friends with a princess, no matter how hard she tries, Sophie. Haven't we learned that lesson well enough? Sophie's mouth dried up. Her voice trapped in her throat. But then, who is the other dean? The door flung open behind her, and a tall, menacingly handsome boy in a sleeveless black leather shirt swaggered through, with spiked black hair, deathly pale cheeks, and lethal violet eyes. Morning, Mother. Brought you fresh coffee, he said, in a deep, strapping voice. He put a mug of blackish liquid on Lady Lesser's desk, then leered at Sophie. Well, I see you're getting our new teacher settled in. He leaned against the sunlit window, a coiled black whip gleaming on his back. Funny, we've never quite met, have we, Sophie of Woods Beyond? You see me, of course, in your invisible cape and in your elfish boy's body, sneaking through the school for boys. Philip of Mountain Aura, was it? Threw me against a wall one night to stop me from torturing your precious Tedros. Oh yes, now I see Philip in there. Those same pretty eyes and succulent lips. But of course, you aren't Philip anymore, are you? So perhaps I should forgive your impertinence. His purple eyes slashed into her. I wouldn't want to hurt that delicious little face. The boy licked his lips and slid his hands into tight pockets, blue veins flexing through his biceps. Wish I could stay, ladies, but I have to administer punishment to a few Everboys in the Doom Room. Caught them writing letters to their parents, asking to be rescued, as if anyone could get in or out now that the schoolmaster's returned. He headed for the doors, then looked at Sophie. You do remember my name, I hope? Sophie cowered into her nightgown, unable to speak. All right, best remember it this time, since I am your dean, he purred, backing through the door. See you at lunch, impertinent little Sophie. Faculty gets its own private spot on the balcony. Now that we're friends, I look forward to getting to know you more. Intimately. He winked at her like a devil, and then he was gone. Sophie turned to Lady Lesso, eyes big as marbles. Lady Lesso sniffed the coffee and poured it into the plum basket. The plums liquefied with a smoking, poisonous reek. Schoolmaster forbade him to kill me, but he still tries, she said grimly, pitching the mug out the window. Yesterday he put an asp in my toilet. Auric is your son, Sophie gasped. He's a monster, a murderer. He killed Tristan. Nearly managed to kill me too in the brief chaos after the trial, before the schoolmaster took control, the dean said, much softer now. I don't blame him, of course. When I accepted the position of Dean of Evil 15 years ago, it was my duty to sever all attachments, children included. But instead, I hid Auric in a cave near school, stealing in to see him at night, year after year, pretending like he had a mother who would always love and protect him. Her voice quavered as she fiddled with the plum basket. The schoolmaster found out and sealed me inside the gates. Never even had the chance to say goodbye to my son. Auric will never forgive me for it, leaving him there, 6 years old in the woods, all alone. And he shouldn't. She looked at Sophie. Like I said, you and I must both pay the price of our mistakes, and mine is having my own son vengefully plot my death while he shares my power as dean. She glanced out the window with a wistful grin. Suppose it's just like the schoolmaster wants. Mother and son as deans, a former student teaching my class, a timeless master and his young queen, old and new working together for evil. Sophie followed her eyes to what used to be the school for evil across the bay, now the crumbling, pockmarked school for old. There were shadowy figures on the roofs now, hulking, misshapen and clearly not human, with bows and arrows slung on their backs, like a monstrous castle guard. Then beneath them, through a tower window, Sophie noticed another shadow. This one, human. Stepping closer, she glimpsed a man's silhouette with a boat-shaped hat like a pirate's, and where his hand should be, a sharp flash of metal instead. A tuft of fog floated in front of him, and when it cleared, the man was no longer there. Sophie bit her lip. Rafal had refused to tell her anything about the old castle, but she was queen, wasn't she? She had a right to know what he was hiding in the other school. Lady Lasso, please tell me what's in the school for old, she said firmly. Students of the old fairy tales, of course, just like we teach a new fairy tale here. But the school for old is the schoolmaster's domain, not yours. The dean sniffed before a cacophonous crackle broke through the castle like an army of demented crickets. That's the fairy signalling end of session. She stood up and clacked toward the door in her steel stilettos. Shall we? Students won't respect a curses teacher who's late, especially a teacher who's supposed to be the new me. Sophie rooted deeper in her chair, arms crossed over her nightgown. First of all, if I'm going to stand in front of a class full of teenage boys, I at least need something to wear. Besides, even if you do get me into that classroom, I don't know any of the new fairy tales. I said a new tale, not tales. Well, whatever fairy tale this is, I can't possibly teach it. Of course you can, since it's the only fairy tale we teach at the school for new. Lady Lesso glowered at her, holding open the door. Yours. Chapter 12. Find the Spy. The old lollipop room in Hansel's Haven was still made of lollipops, but they'd been blown up into thousands of rainbow-coloured shards and pieced into new murals across the walls. As students flurried in from the crowded hall, Sophie sat on Professor Sheik's old lollipop desk that had been slashed, scarred, beaten into lumps, and riddled with holes. Wearing black suede stiletto boots and a form-fitting lacy black dress, she studied the murals of herself, at her most evil, in The Tale of Sophie and Agatha, riding a rat to slay Agatha during the Good-Evil War, invisibly attacking... attacking Tedros during the Boy-Girl War, throwing Agatha into a sewer, pushing Tedros off a cliff. You've fought them before, the voice inside her said. You can do it again. Her hands started to shake. I can't, Sophie panicked, looking away. I'm different now. She waited for the voice inside her to agree, to speak reason and protect her friends. Instead, a different voice came this time, darker, angrier, spewing bile. Like mother, like daughter. Like mother, like daughter. Like mother, like daughter. Like mother, like daughter. Slowly, Sophie lifted her eyes back to Agatha and Tedros painted on the walls, and for a moment she saw Honora and Stefan instead. Sophie's hands stopped shaking. Find the spy, the witch inside whispered. Find the spy, she obeyed, locking to the task. A throat cleared loudly. Sophie looked down at a class of almost 40 evers and nevers in black and green uniforms crammed into seats. Beatrix, Rena, Chaddick, Nicholas, Mona, Arachne, Robin, Vex, Millicent, Brone among them, all wearing the same putrid scowls. Oh, hello there, class, Sophie sputtered, startled by both their expressions and the sheer number of students. It's been a while, hasn't it? The students' scowls intensified. But we're a family now, aren't we? Sophie fawned, trying a new tactic. And look at you, so smart in black. Never used to like black, such a nihilistic colour, but Lady Lasso said this dress belonged to Rumpelstiltskin's niece, who used to teach this very same class. Small-boned woman, not surprising since her uncle was a dwarf, so no one's been able to fit into it until me. The students looked positively hateful now. Lady Lasso said Pollux has been teaching in my absence, she puttered, so perhaps we should wait for him to... Vex let out an angry fart. Sophie held her breath. Find the spy. She refocused. Someone in this room was on Good's side, trying to help kill the boy she loved. And yet, with their matching scowls, all the students in the room looked equally capable of betraying evil, evers and nevers alike. That is, except for Kiko, in a black babushka and veil, sniffling at the back of the room. Sophie glimpsed the small pink ribbon pinned to her uniform. R.I.P. Tristan. Kiko saw Sophie looking at her and gave her the same horrible glare as everyone else. Did someone put frownies in the school brawl this morning? Sophie simpered, trying to keep her cool. A spitball hit her in the eye. Sophie exploded red, not even bothering to look for who shot it. Look, it's obvious why you're all upset, okay? When I first came to this place, you were vile to me, even though I was nothing but nice to each of you, whether greeting you in hallways, enduring your odious hygiene, or educating you about the evils of white flour. And now you're mad, because the most handsome boy in the world gave me his ring, which makes me queen of the school, sitting up here with all the power while you're down there, with no power at all. But you know what? Tough tooties. I've been alone my whole life, trying to find someone who loves me, who won't leave me, someone who actually likes me for who I am, warts and all. And now I've found him. I don't care if he's a sorcerer, I don't care if he's the most evil boy in the world. He's mine, and he loves me, even if I'm emotional and complicated and brutally misunderstood. So proud and be mad all you like, but after all I've endured in my life, I deserve to have true love, whether you like it or not, and the least you can do is be happy for me. Silence. That's not why we're mad, snapped Beatrix. No one gives a hog behind if you have a boyfriend, Mona stabbed. Sophie pursed her lips. Oh, then what's the problem? All the kids turned towards the window. Sophie followed their eyes to the colossal scoreboard over the green forest, listing the students in order of their scores. Glowing red lines divided the board into 3 sections, a top group, a middle group, and a bottom group. She couldn't read any of the names through the hazy green air, except for Hortz, firmly atop the rankings. Third year, he's trekking you, growled Rowan, picking miserably at his shorn black hair. Starting next week, we're split into dorms as leaders, henchmen, or nobles, based on our rankings. Which means evers like me have to excel at evil, or will end up poisonous toads. Millicent coughed to Sophie. This is entirely your fault. And it's no better for nevers either, Mona added. We have twice as many people to compete against now that the whole school is evil. And even if you do end up a leader, they get double the homework as everyone else, said Vex. And the henchmen have to follow their leaders and do everything they say, fretted Rena. And Mogrefs have to go to class as animals, said Beatrix. And God forbid you fail 3 challenges in a row. Then you end up a plant. What are you upset about? You're on track to be a leader, Kiko said, whirling to her. I'm third to last in the whole school. Suppose I get turned into a tulip. I can't even concentrate ever since. She burst into tears. Tristan adored tulips. Used to put them in his hair. Kiko blew her nose into her veil. That boy loved me so much. Oh, for Pete's sake, that boy wouldn't have loved you if you were the last girl on earth, Beatrix hissed. Besides, I don't want to be a leader of evil, you dimwit. Once upon a time, I was almost class captain in the school for good. And now, I have to uglify and curse people and have henchmen. Sounds like a typical day for you, actually, Sophie murmured. Beatrix gasped. Even the school for boys was better than this, Chadwick contended. Sure, our castle was a little rank, but at least we didn't have fairies stinging us like bees if we were a second late, and Arex sending us to the doom room to be tortured for rules he's completely made up. He's punished every boy in school like 10 times already. He got me for an untucked shirt yesterday, Nicholas said. That kid is evil, and not in a good way, muttered Vex quietly. Sophie waited for them to elaborate, but all the boys glanced at each other in tortured brotherhood before swiveling back to her. Everything was fine for the last 200 years, until you came along and messed up good and even, barked Rowan. Boys and girls too, Brown boomed. I hope Agatha and Tedros break in and kill the schoolmaster, seethed Arachne. I hope they bring good back. Bring good back, Beatrix shouted, and all the students stomped their feet in solidarity, cheering along. Bring good back! Bring good back! Sophie gaped, speechless. How could she find the spy for good if all of them were on Good's side? That's your job, you ninny. A sharp, nasty voice echoed outside. The door flew open, and 3 students pattered in, tittering loudly. To follow me around and do whatever I say, grouched a pasty girl with dirty hair, streaked black and red, and a fearsome buck-horned demon tattooed around her neck. Hope I get tracked as a leader, and you as my henchman, retorted an albino girl with a throaty rasp and 3 black rats sticking out of her pockets. I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life kissing my... Daddy said he'd buy me a new horse if I made leader, chirped a girl behind them, round as a balloon, snacking on a bundle of chocolate daisies. Killed my last one by accident. Sat on it, scoffed the albino. Fed it too much fudge, said the round girl. Suddenly, all 3 girls stopped in their tracks and craned their heads to Sophie. They broke into toothy smiles and dropped into their seats in unison, hands folded over their bags. Sorry we're late, said tattooed Hester. Hester made us clean up after a dragon in henchmen, said albino Annabelle. Dragons poo a lot, said paunchy Dot, mouth full. Sophie nearly leapt off the desk to hug her old roommates. Oh, praise heavens, my real friends, she beamed, so relieved to see the 3 smiley witches against the sea of snarls. At least someone's happy to see me. I wouldn't go that far, Hester mumbled. She started opening her book bag, then noticed the furious faces around her. Oh, here we go, she moaned. For the last time, you're all in the school for evil now, and that means you're fighting for evil. Look at me. Oryx stabbed a blade in my stomach during the trial, and now I obey his every word. You want to stay alive? You want the sun to stop melting? Then do what the teachers say and help Sophie kill Agatha and Tedros. I thought Agatha was your friend, Robin sniped. Excuse me? These are my friends, Esther said, pointing to Annabelle and Dot with a glowing red fingertip. The coven everyone fears and yet wants to be in. The clique that doesn't give a damn what you think. The sinful, sinistral, all-around original 3 witches of room 66. Dot's even fat again. Annabelle quipped. Dot frowned. Sure, Agatha was likeable in a handicapped dog kind of way, Esther went on. But I learned my lesson when I almost died at Oryx's hands defending her. All I ever wanted was for evil to have a normal school again, where we learn evil things and learn to be better villains than my incompetent mother was. And now, because of Sophie, we don't just have one evil school, we have 2. Plus, for the first time, villains can have a never after, Dot Dot reveled. You know what that means, don't you? She gave Rovan a wink. Evil Valentine's Day. Rovan gagged. And if we don't want love, that's fine too, said Annabelle with a repulsed look. Once Sophie's storybook closes, evil will prove it can win, with villains no longer cursed to die. Here's to free evil, hollered Hester. Here's to free will, hooted Dot. Here's to Queen Sophie, Annabelle proclaimed, banging fists loudly on her desk as Hester and Dot chanted, and 3 black rats squeaked. Here's to Queen Sophie, here's to Queen Sophie. No one else joined them. Did the bring good back cheer already, didn't they? Dot sighed. Sophie smiled at her 3 witch champions. At least she knew who wasn't the spy. The door flew open behind her, and an obese pink flamingo stumbled in. Or rather, most of an obese pink flamingo, since a dog head was attached to its body, trying and failing to navigate it. Apologies for the late arrival, he smiled, resting awkwardly against a wall. Castor was feeling ill, so I took over his henchman class and led the students in a rousing anthem I composed for Lord Auric, our illustrious dean. Would you like to hear it? It's best performed by a 52-piece symphony and soprano choir, but I'm sure I can replicate the effect. He saw Sophie at the teacher's desk. Oh, hello, former student. The dog sniffed. Sophie glowered at Pollux, one half of a 2-headed Cerberus who routinely lost the battle to use their body to his rabid brother, Castor. She couldn't have gone the rest of her life without seeing this oily, spineless brown-noser again, who'd clearly buttered up Auric in order to avoid being imprisoned with the rest of the good teachers, just like he'd buttered up Evelyn Sader last year to avoid being evicted with the boys. Even worse, Pollux was clearly lying about why he was late, since her 3 witch friends said they were just helping Castor clean up dragon poo. Would you like to take a seat amongst your kind? Pollux jabbed, as if reading her thoughts. I assumed you'd leave the class to me, since it has been mine the past few weeks. I'm quite fine where I am, Sophie retorted, suddenly happy to be a teacher if it meant riling up this boob. She turned back to the class. Might you tell me what you've been learning, students? The tale of Sophie and Agatha, inside and out, said Hort, rolling into the room without books or a bag. His hand slid up his shirt, showing off his rippled stomach. You know, trying to spot Agatha and Tedros' weaknesses, so we can kill them and finally stop being losers. He dropped into a seat, blew his dark bangs out of his glittering black eyes, and stretched his chest with a yawn. Sophie goggled at Hort's broad shoulders, casual stubble, and laid-back slouch. In a month, he'd gone from wimpy, earnest pipsqueak to teenage heartthrob. She noticed all the other girls slyly checking him out, Evers and Nevers both. It must be a makeover spell, she thought, watching him toss his hair. Or a twin brother, or a deal with the devil, or something. Hort caught her looking and scowled at her murderously, like he had in the foyer. Sophie stiffened and pretended to listen to Pollux. As Hort points out, the first week we did a unit on Tedros' shortcomings as a prince, the dog said, flopping on the teacher's desk and shoving Sophie over. He waved a wing and the lollipop colours on the walls rearranged to scenes of Tedros' worst moments from The Tale of Sophie and Agatha. And what did we learn, class? Yes, Hester. He has serious daddy issues, Hester said, leering at a painting of Tedros killing a gargoyle in Merlin's menagerie. Excellent. Yes, Annabelle? He doesn't trust girls since his mother left him, said the albino, pointing at a painting of Tedros shooting an arrow at Agatha in Evil's Grand Hall. Spot on? Yes, Dot. He's obsessed with swords, chimed Dot, nodding at a scene of Tedros almost kissing Philip in a forest. Pollux blinked at her. Moving on to our challenge. Thoughts of Hort fell away as Sophie studied the painting of her and Tedros together when she was Philip. He'd been so vulnerable with her when she was a boy, so nurturing and soft. And she'd seen the real Tedros underneath his macho facade. They'd become so close, in that short time, blood and soulmates, like she and Agatha, once upon a time. Sophie blushed, reliving the moment when he finally touched her in the blue forest. It was all based on a lie, of course. Tedros would have never opened up to her if he'd known who she was. She'd lost that Tedros forever. That perfect, beautiful boy who tried to kiss his best friend. Sophie scorched red. Tedros wanted to kill Rafal, and she was blushing over him. You have a new love, she gritted, pinching her thigh hard. Stop thinking about old ones. So, with all this in mind, Pollux prattled, his bird bottom shunting Sophie to the edge of the desk. Today's class challenge is to delve even deeper into Tedros' mind. In a moment, all of you will be concealed under magical Tedros masks. Since Sophie insists on playing teacher, she'll be responsible for judging who most acts like the real prince. Whoever she deems the most Tedros-like wins first rank. He rammed Sophie off the desk, knocking her to the floor. Shall we? He snipped down at her. A few minutes later, Sophie stood, blindfolded with a smelly black rag, as she listened to students rearrange seats. The spy must be Tedros' friend if they're going to help him break in, she thought. And the spy is the only one who's been in touch with him since he vanished. Which meant that whoever won this challenge, whoever knew Tedros well enough to mimic him, would surely be the prime suspect. Everyone find a new place. We don't want Sophie remembering where you were. Pollux's voice called before she heard the last backside plunk down. All right, the cloaking spell will cover your face in a phantom mask. Don't touch, or it might glue to your face permanently. You hear me? Don't touch. This school is so unsafe, Rena's voice cracked. Ready? Pollux said. 1, 2, 3. Sophie heard a loud, windy crack, and then dead quiet. The masks are hot, Robin's voice grumped. And blonde, Esther's voice groaned. Shh, hissed Pollux. Sophie, on your mark. Get set. Go. Sophie flung off the blindfold. If she'd blushed pink before looking at Tedros' face on the walls, now she was as pink as Pollux's feathers. There were 40 Tedroses sitting in front of her, reflecting back his crystal blue eyes, fluffy gold locks, and tan, flawless skin. Yet there was a strange haziness to the faces, rubbery thick and oddly luminous at the edges, so she couldn't discern the necks and clothes beneath the masks. Some of the Tedroses were smiling, some sneering, some frosty and blank-eyed, but as she scanned the sum of these gorgeous princes, Sophie felt her cheeks burning even hotter. Stop blushing, you idiot. Tedros isn't your friend anymore. No, he was the boy who rejected her for her best friend. The boy who wanted to kill her true love. The poster boy for good who had a spy working against her in this very room. Well, Pollux huffed. Sophie braced herself and waded into the sea of princes. One by one, she analysed them, but it only took seconds to see the fraudulence each time. The smile was too snarky or dopey, his posture too rigid or slouched, or there was a flicker of self-doubt, a hang of the head, a bob of the throat, that the real Tedros never had. One Tedros nearly fought her in the second row, but he flinched as she made eye contact, and the real Tedros would have held his stare, strong and unyielding, until your heart turned to putty, and you were his. None of the others around him even came close, and soon she was in the final row, no closer to finding good spy, until the last Tedros stopped her, cold. She looked into his steady blue eyes, sparkling with mischief. He bit his juicy lower lip and cocked a brow, almost more Tedros than Tedros himself. And Sophie felt a flash of fire rip through her body. This one, she thought, girding her loins. This is the one that knows him best. This is the spy. She leaned in teasingly, daring the spy at his or her own game. But the closer she drew, the more she felt the warmth of the prince's dewy skin, and smelled that stirring mix of meat and wood, until Sophie's heart began to hammer, and she knew this wasn't a spy, this was him, the real him, and he ditched Agatha to be with her. Stunned, panicked, exhilarated, she hugged him with a gasp. Teddy, it's you! Rubber instantly melted to skin, and Hort glared back at her. Don't touch. Sophie recoiled in shock. A one rank exploded over Hort's head in a crown of green smoke as rankings popped up over everyone else, their masks melting away over their usual faces. Well done, Hort, Pollock said. You'll no doubt help our queen kill the real Tedros. No doubt, said Hort, still staring daggers at Sophie. I'm so going to end up a pea shoot. Kiko moved behind him, a black cloud 20 raining on her head. Sophie was in such a fog that by the time she'd gathered her wits, the fairies had clamoured and the students were all rushing out the door into the crowded hall. Punch drunk, she lumbered after them, still trying to grasp how Hort had become Tedros, and Tedros back to Hort, and why she tried to hug Tedros at all. Three witches suddenly scooted past her doorway. Almost caught us on dragon poo, Dot whispered. I told you we should have a different excuse. Hester growled. No one noticed a thing. Shush, Annabelle. Sophie shook off her daze and hurried after her former roommates, eager to debrief, like they always did. Hey, wait up, she called excitedly. But instead of waiting, the three witches stopped dead at the sound of her voice and scurried ahead even faster than before. Alone in the doorway, Sophie watched them blend into the black-robed mob, her smile slowly flattening, but at a loss to explain why her only three friends at this school had just acted like they weren't her friends at all. Chapter 13. Too many boys. Normally, teachers at the School for Good and Evil taught multiple sessions, but Lady Lesso had given Sophie only one, which the Dean had filled with students who knew Agatha and Tedros best. But, as the next class began, Sophie wandered through Hansel's Haven, no closer to finding out who the spy was or how the two Evers planned to get in. It can't be Hort, even though he'd won the challenge, for he'd always hated Tedros and had no incentive to help him. But who then? Who would risk their lives to help Good slay Rafal? Who would risk their lives to help Good win her back? She roamed past classrooms, peeking through doors at teachers preparing students to ambush Agatha and Tedros. In Uglification, Professor Manley led students in a camouflage challenge that magically blended them into school furnishings in order to surprise the enemy. In History, Rafal lectured the students on ways intruders had once tried to break into the School for Good and Evil. In Special Talents, Professor Sheeks hosted an open sparring tournament where students deployed their special talents against each other. And, out in the Blue Forest, Auric forced students through a boot camp obstacle course while fairies stung anyone who lagged behind. Standing on the third floor balcony, Sophie marvelled at Auric, hulking and sweat-soaked in his sleeveless shirt, barking orders at his students. For a murderous, cretinous thug, he was sickly good-looking. Her face reddened. Did I just have that thought? Auric suddenly looked up at her, as if he was inside her head, and gave her a knife-edged smile. A hand touched her, and Sophie screamed. Glad to know I'm still scary. Rafal smirked. Sophie stared at her handsome young beau,